So let's, you've given us a lot of information. So let's go back a little bit and talk about some of these a little bit more in detail. The one that probably fascinates me the most is talking about stomach acid, because that's not something that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people know about, a lot of people understand. And we've got, I mean, you say 90% of people aren't producing enough stomach acid, but if you talk to the average person, they would say that they are producing too much stomach acid and they live on a diet of Tums and, Prevacid and all this other stuff. What's happening there? Why does everyone have a bottle of Tums in their pocket, and what can we do about that?
So here's the issue. When you don't produce enough stomach acid, I would look at your B6 and zinc, since those are needed for stomach acid production. But what's happening is that because you're not properly digesting your foods because of the lack of stomach acid, food sits in your stomach too long, and then it starts to go bad. Over time, this can weaken the cardiac sphincter, and the food actually comes up through the cardiac sphincter back into your esophagus. Now, even though the pH of your stomach contents is not what it should be, it's still too acidic for your esophagus, and it burns the esophagus. So that's why. I mean, I saw my own dad go through this, where he was just eating the wrong diet, and he wasn't digesting his foods properly. He goes to the doctor. What does the doctor do? The first thing he does is prescribe a proton pump inhibitor like Nexium or Prilosec. And that's just making the problem worse.
I liken this whole thing with stomach acid and how we have habitually low stomach acid, and yet we take things to make it lower because we think we have high. I liken it to the whole cholesterol thing, because we've been told, well, we have lots of cholesterol in our arteries, so you need to lower the amount of cholesterol in your arteries. Here, take this statin medication to bring it down, when we know it's just the opposite. It's not that you have too much cholesterol, it's that you have too much inflammation. So I kind of see an analogy there with a lot of the things that we believe are happening and mainstream medicine is trying to address through pharmaceutical is dead wrong.
Yeah, and diabetes as well. You've got diabetics that are being prescribed more insulin, making the problem worse over time.
Exactly. Good analogy.
Yep.
So, what can someone that maybe struggles with stomach acid or struggles with digestion, what can they do to fix that issue?
So the first thing I would recommend that the client does is go check with their doctor just to make sure, because there are a small percentage of people that are actually producing too much. They can go to their doctor and ask for the Heidelberg gastrotelemetry test. And
the Heidel what?
The Heidelberg gastrotelemetry test.
I just want to see if she can say it again.
and basically all this involves is you swallowing a pill that measures the pH of your stomach that sends the results to your doctor. And you can tell right then and there if you're not producing enough or too much. If you're not producing enough, I would check your zinc status. I would have your doctor run a vitamin and mineral status test to check your vitamin and minerals, see how you're doing. If you're deficient in zinc, start supplementing with zinc. That helps with stomach acid production. Something that I started doing after I went through this program is I actually take digestive enzymes and bile salts to help, because I don't have a gallbladder, and so that's going to make it that much more difficult to digest fats.
And what are the fats that they can consume that you can digest without bile?
So butter and coconut oil do not need bile to break them down. So if you...
Oh, darn, I have to have butter and coconut oil.
Because they're shorter chains? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. So stick with those, but make sure you slowly add back those fats. We're on a rabbit trail now.
Yes.
But, so the bile salts, and you can actually supplement with HCl too as well.
Which is stomach acid.
Be careful with this, because if you have unknown stomach issues, like I still deal a little bit with stomach ulcers. I'm working on healing my stomach. I found out the hard way. I started supplementing with HCl and my stomach hurt for 4 days.
Yeah.
It was because of these unhealed ulcers. So if you're going to supplement with HCl, just make sure you work with a practitioner or other health professional that can kind of monitor you and help you through that.
And if you run the vitamin and mineral panel with your doctor, don't expect the doctor to know how to interpret that.
Yeah.
So that's where you go see a nutritional therapy practitioner, a functional medicine practitioner, somebody that can translate it, a traditionally trained medical professional. Tell the story about your PT,
the physician's assistant?
The PA, sorry.
Yeah.
That didn't know what you were talking about.
So I went to see my physician's assistant for my annual physical, and she ran, all these tests, and one of them that came back a little wonky was my calcium. And I'm like, okay. She said, do you eat a lot of foods with calcium? I'm like, well, yeah, probably. And I said, well, could it be my calcium is kind of wonky because I have a K2 deficiency? Because you need K2 to tell the calcium where it needs to go in the body. So she kind of looked at me with this puzzled look. And
she had no clue.
The funny thing is she's a newer, younger
Just graduated.
doctor. So even the younger ones are still not getting enough education in micronutrition to so she said, I don't know. I'll have to do some research. At least she said I'll be willing to do research on it.
She might.
But the fact that she didn't know, it's like I was having to take my own health back into my hands.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I've never had a doctor on this podcast that said, yeah, I was thoroughly trained in nutrition and really had a good handle on nutrition. I've never had a single one. They'll tell me everything about every single pill that I want to know about, but just eating real food, that doesn't show up in the training.
Same on my podcast. I've had, you can combine all the podcasts, well over 2,000 interviews with various people, a lot of them medical health professionals, and the most I've ever heard other than a naturopath of getting nutrition education was maybe a couple weeks. And I talked to a Duke University graduate from medical school last year, and it was a fourth-year student. He said, I had 1 3-hour seminar. That's it.
Wow, that's
no
amazing.
mention of carbs, no mention of insulin, no mention of really anything of significance in nutrition.
It's stunning, and it's so foundational to everything. You would think that would be the most important thing, but there's just no money in prescribing kale and steaks.
Yeah, and butter. Yeah.